Welcome, welcome, beautiful people. I am your girl, Tammy. Thanks for joining me again for another Mixxy Mashup. Let's get into it, y'all. This has been an interesting week. It has been a long one, but I am glad y'all are chilling back with me another day. Well, let's get into what's been going on in these pop culture streets. Our girl Beyonce, as we know, she's on the Renaissance tour, and it's been a lot of ups and downs for this tour that's been going on recently. One of the biggest or most interesting things this past week was there was some severe weather in the DMV area, specifically DC, Maryland, and Virginia. For folks who don't know, Beyonce was actually performing at FedEx Field, which is actually in Landover, Maryland, and she was on her Renaissance stop tour. She was on her Renaissance tour stop, and the weather was so bad that the show had to start late. And, concert folks had to wait like at least 2 hours in shelter in place before the performance can begin. And Beyonce did the most incredible thing. And I really wanted to touch on this story this week because I actually had a personal experience with this, not from this particular show, but just from a concert of hers a while back. But what she did that was so amazing was that instead of just canceling the show and saying people had to get their money back or anything like that, B said, look, if y'all will be willing to wait, I will perform. But she also knew that by performing, she was going to be 2 hours late. So the show was supposed to start at 8. It actually didn't start till about 10. And as a result, in certain areas, the metros don't run or the trains don't run or public transportation doesn't run, super lengthy. When they know events are going to be in town, something that large, they will let the trains run for a little bit longer and stuff like that. And that would essentially put, I think in the DMV area, the metro stops running about like 12 p.m., I believe, in most areas. And then starts back up at like 5 a.m. in the morning. But if you're at a concert that's starting at 10, that's going to put people behind for some time. And so what Beyonce did amazingly is she covered the cost of the trains running. So her tour actually funded the additional hour of metro service that they needed to keep open, which was at $100,000. So this lady paid $100,000 of her own money to keep the trains running for 98 stations, so that customers could exit and get out and get into those stations to be able to go home. That is amazing. I just have to say this from my own personal experience, and this is one of the reasons I just like will always respect and like love Beyonce as an artist. I just love the business side of her. I'm not a Beehive person. I'm definitely a fan of her music, but I'm not really in any sort of stan group for pretty much anybody. But one of the things I have always respected about this lady is her work ethic and her respect for her fan base. Um, and what I mean by respect for her fan base isn't like the idolatry or like the over love of her, but more so about like how she believes in giving them a top tier performance and how she puts her money where her mouth is when it comes to that, and she puts her body with her where her mouth is when it comes to that. We know earlier at the beginning of this tour, when she was not on the US leg, which she is now, Beyonce was performing internationally. She had a little injury and she was still trying to give the girls everything. She really, really does come from an era, I feel like, in a era that's kind of, we still have a little bit, but we're losing in terms of like where we have the mystery of the artist, but we also have a real strong dedication to perfection and to a top tier level of performance, a top tier level of artistry that we're really, I would say, starting to lose with the new era. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that maybe artists are too tapped into their fan base. But while I applaud what she did, I'm not shocked by this behavior because I myself saw Beyonce a while back, when she was on the Run tour with Jay-Z a while back, in another city, and something similar pretty much happened. It was, the concert was supposed to start at 8. Everybody was on time. This is when Khaled was like DJing for them specifically, and he was the opener. And they even had like guest artists like Nas and Remy Ma and like Fabulous that like came out and rapped and performed before they started. And then it's started to rain. Was at a stadium because what else does B do but stadiums? And of course that meant that we were going to be rained out, and it was, the rain was set to last. I think they said the weather performance at the rain was set to last about 2 hours or so. And we were like pissed because like I had drove somewhere to go with like my sister, and I was like, oh, this is not going to be amazing. This sucks. I'm gonna have to, like, we're gonna miss this concert. We were really waiting for it all summer. And we got an announcement about 20 minutes into it. People like walked out, walked inside the stadium. We were on the club floor, so we were able to just like go inside and sit down on couches and stuff. But we were still gonna thought we were gonna miss the show. And about 2 hours in, they were like, "Oh, Beyonce and Jay-Z said if you guys will wait, they will perform, even if it rains for 3 hours." And they were actually paying to keep the stadium open, because in that instance, the trains that came there, they ran, all night or 24 hours. But they said they would keep the stadium open. They had to pay for the staff to stay and people to stay, because the stadium is only booking you for the amount of time of the show. So amazingly, it stopped raining after 2 hours. When I tell you, these people came out, wiped down these seats, wiped down the outside parts of the stadium. They cleaned the stage. It had just rained heavy on that stage. They cleaned and wiped off that water on that stage. And I tell you, they got to work. And when that lady started at 10 o'clock, and her and Jay just took the stage, magically performing off of each other individually, like, it was an amazing experience. I didn't feel like we lost a step in that show. We didn't get half step. They did their whole performance, because I had seen previous performances online, so I know we didn't get shortchanged. It was amazing. She was in the highest heels I've ever seen, multiple times. And this lady was leaping on stage in these large gowns, so she could have tripped and fell. And that stage had just been, wet previously. So it was an amazing experience. We didn't have to lose any money. And it was just an incredible time. So, shouts out to B. I mean, this was an incredible thing to do, to keep the Metro open. Those people got paid. Her fans got to still experience her. And you just don't really hear about stuff like this anymore, or period, from artists. Normally it's just like, oh, it got canceled, we can't do it. And I respect when that happens sometimes. But I think people don't realize how much money, especially when the tickets are expensive, um, how much time and effort people put into putting their outfits together. And we've seen so much go on with Renaissance, and just to see how much she respects and loves her fans and wants to give them everything in these moments. It was just exceptional to see, and just shout out to B. It was an incredibly classy thing to do, and I'm glad that people got to experience her. All right, y'all. So this is sort of, I guess, a melancholy but positive, I guess, a story here. So, the icon, the pop icon we all know as the amazing Madonna, has really been going through a lot recently. Madonna's been just going through a lot of medical issues. Recently, she was hospitalized like a month and a half ago for like a bacterial infection, and then she had like some sort of fever going on. And as a result, she had to postpone her celebration world tour. She was scheduled from earlier this year. I think she started advertising in the beginning of this year to start this world tour. It's supposed to be like 40. I think it commemorates like her 40 years in the business. And she even did this really huge promo with like a bunch of different artists to promote her going on tour. And, Madonna's given us iconic songs like A Virgin, Take a Bow, just amazing, amazing songs. And, just one of the OG original dope performers on stage. And she basically has been like going through it to it, where she's had to cancel some of her tour dates. Recently, she was on Instagram and she posted a caption saying, she was all dressed up and nowhere to go. But just telling her fans that she'll be, available, soon, and that she'll be traveling soon. She was scheduled to kick off her tour dates back in July. But her manager came out and basically said that they had to put a pause on it because she had like a serious bacterial infection, and she had to be hospitalized, and she was in ICU. So we're really, really glad that she's out of that. She had been running like a low-grade fever for a month or so, and there were some other symptoms that were going on, and that is not a way that you start off a world tour, or really any tour. She's out of the hospital now. She was back on Instagram last week and just letting us know that she's recuperating, but she did have to cancel some of her US dates. And so she's pushing forward on that. I think she was going to be trying to start up again in August. And I think she has some dates, I think in New York and in some other Northeastern cities. And she's had to now cancel those or reschedule them. So I think they're pushing for her to start towards the end of the year. And then at the beginning of January of 2024, she'll begin to like start shows again. I'm just glad to know Madonna's okay. It's one of those things I feel like we've been just losing a lot of people recently. In a bunch of different fields of entertainment. We just lost Sinead O'Connor not that long ago. just other people have either been sick and just really dying young too. We're just losing a lot of people under the age of 50, under the age of 60 to like the saddest thing. So I'm glad to know, Madonna is doing better. She's recuperating. I do think it's so important that artists take the time out to make sure that they're getting their physical health back. I think they feel a lot of pressure to be on and to constantly, like, especially if a tour is coming up, to not dissatisfy their fans. But you do have to take care of numero uno first. So I'm really, really glad that she is taking the time to do that. We do not have the time to be losing nobody else this year. It's been already too much tragically. And I think once she's better and in full mode, she'll give the best performance to her fan base. And, she's got 40 plus years of hits and songs to go through. So that's a whole entity into itself. So I'm glad she's doing well. And, I hope her fans continue to support her through her recuperation and not try to overly focus on when she's going to start her tour. And we know Madonna gives a great show. She always does a whole to do. I'm sure they'll even have stuff for her, in her 40 years coming up, on award shows and stuff, kind of honoring her. So it's going to be pretty cool to see what she does. And I'm glad she's just taking the time out to focus on her.
So it looks like Nelly and Ashanti are trying to be more transparent in these streets, y'all. So
Recently we've been seeing them a lot lately, like everywhere. For me personally, I am super happy to see them spinning the block. Nelly and Ashanti, like my favorite, I guess, like OG couple from back in the day. I wasn't really into all of the little like R&B hip hop couples they had for a minute. They were really my fave. So I was kind of sad when they broke up and didn't, whatever. So it's nice to see them spinning the block. Hey, if Ben and Jen can do it, so can Nelly and Ashanti. But for the most part, we know a lot of their previous dating, they tried to keep low key. They tried to like kind of keep themselves under the radar. People knew that they were dating, but they always kind of kept it a little bit low key, didn't really acknowledge completely, but it was clear that they sort of were together at one point, that they were initially dating. But they would always be really inconspicuous when they were doing interviews on radio or television about whether or not they were together. I think it was a good and bad thing. Like sometimes I think it helped. And when you think about the focus of attention we have on celebrity relationships, that nobody really knows what happened in the dynamic. There was always like rumors of different things, but nothing was ever confirmed. And I genuinely don't believe anything happened too deep that stopped them from being together, because even when they sort of rekindled, or there was conversation recently before they kind of got back together, I think what occurred wasn't what people kind of always tried to make the rumors out to be in terms of what went wrong in the relationship. So I think they were able to kind of go back and fix things as a result of it not being as deep as people wanted it to be. We could only really have rumors because they didn't really tell a lot of their business. And that probably was the best thing that ever happened for them in terms of like their personal life. Because all you had was like innuendo and rumors of what people thought could have happened, but nobody really knew anything. They've been keeping the rekindlement low key. But for like one of the first times that we've really seen recently, they posted this video, both posted it in their stories on social media, of them singing Usher's Nice and Slow. Nelly had been at the concert a while back. I believe Ashanti was there. We've seen them at the fight that just happened recently in Vegas. They've been performing tons since Versus. So Nelly and Ashanti were already on tour separately from each other, but a lot of the tours that have been going on recently in the last year or two have been like the old school R&B tours, old school hip hop tours. It's so crazy to think that Nelly and Ashanti are considered old school, but we're there right now. These people are in their 40s and 50s. And so, a lot of these tours go on throughout the year, and they perform at all these different stages and arenas and like festivals and things. And so they were already on tour to do some of these things anyway. And we kind of know that they initially sort of rekindled and saw each other back in 2021 when Versus was still going on and we were still in the Panini press. And there was a Fat Joe versus Ja Rule versus, and Ashanti was on stage pretty much performing with both artists, and somewhere in the middle they brought out Nelly. I think Fat Joe has a song with Nelly and he brought him out, and of course Nelly, after performing, could not stop looking at Ashanti from across the stage. And skedaddled his behind all the way over to the other side of the stage to make sure he got a hug from her. He was trying to get some type of feel up going on, with no shame, by the way. But after, the infamous hug, it was the talk of the town the next day. Fat Joe made a big deal about it. And of course, everybody was like, hey, what's going on there? And then Ashanti dropped the bomb. They're like, hey, I'm not single. And she basically said that they had a gray area that they had never addressed in their relationship that caused some of the breakup and some of the issues with that. She was saying she wasn't single. But then a couple of months later, she was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy, and she alluded to the fact that somebody asked her, would she ever spin the block with Nelly? And she was like, you never know. That's when I knew something was going on. I was like, I know something going on with them just because of that. But then fast forward, we're now seeing all these dates that they've been doing since last year together. And I really just think that over that course of time is when things started to rekindle. So I want to say it was really 2022, even though like officially, like, E News or whatever was like, hey, 2023. I think they really started linking up again once they started doing those tour dates because they were around each other so often. And Nelly has not made a shy about the fact that he's very much still in love with her. Um, and, it's just nice to see them together, enjoying each other's company. They seem really happy in each other's presence. They seem to really be enjoying it. The fact that they actually are doing a lot of shows that end up intertwining, because a lot of these things they were already pre-booked for. And then they have a song together, which is Body on Me, that they've been able to perform together on stage, has been incredible. So it's just nice to see them happy and in love and enjoying each other's company. And I think we all kind of hope that this leads to a further down the line, whatever they want it to be. If that's marriage, I know Ashanti expressed when she was on Watch What Happens Live, I think last year, that she was interested in having a kid or a child. Nelly is already a parent. His kids are grown. And I know they were very close to her when they were dating, and they always like had videos and stuff out where they were showing that they really really, really liked Ashanti. So um I wish them nothing but the best, and I hope this works out. They dated for almost a decade, and then they were apart for a decade. So let's hope that they're back for good this time. So we'll see, but good luck to both of them. So the icons are back. Honey, when I tell you they're wasting no time reminding people that there was once a moment in an era in time where we did not call the supermodels by their first and last name, honey. We knew them simply as Naomi. We knew them as Giselle. We knew them as Iman. We knew them as Cindy. Um, so nowadays, they randomly throw girls into bikinis in situations and we don't know who that is. But anyway, the icons are back. At least Victoria's Secret is hoping so. So Victoria's Secret recently announced and debuted this icon line that they now have coming out of, lingerie for the brand. And this campaign is very different because they have tons of well-known names and models that we know. Uh, advertising for the line. We have, Halle Bieber. We have Emily. We have Giselle. We have Naomi. We have Adriana. We have Candace. We have Paloma. Um, and these are women that, did work with Victoria's Secret at some point previously, but as we know, Victoria's Secret went through a large they kind of fell off for a minute, specifically because they were going through a lot of branding issues. They got hit with the pandemic like everybody else did. But in addition, Victoria's Secret had really lost their identity. The Angels thing had kind of run its course, and they just hadn't really evolved. And then Savage Fenty came in and pretty much was like, hey, girl, y'all are really not inclusive. We're not really seeing a lot of diversity still after all of these years. Even back in the day, we didn't see a lot of diverse models with Victoria's Secret, not just in along like maybe ethnic or racial lines, but we also didn't see different body types. And tons of women go into the store to buy things. But it was just always this one aesthetic. And so that got boring over time and it wasn't evolving, and women want to see themselves in lingerie. This new campaign, this icon campaign, is about the shape of you. That's what they're stating it is. But it was something that really eluded Victoria's Secret for a long time. They thought that they just had to stay in the supermodel realm, and it worked for a really long time. It was successful for their brand for a really long time, but then these other lingerie lines started to appear, and they really took the lingerie, the underwear world by storm because women identify more with these brands. They felt fresher and newer. They felt hipper, and they also felt more inclusive. And Victoria's Secret lost that. They have started to work at trying to regain that. They've included larger sizes on their website. They've included different types of models. We're starting to see women of different diverse backgrounds and physical diversity amongst the models, and it's really been helping them. They've collaborated with a lot of smaller lingerie designers and really just up their brand a lot. And it's really helped them to reface their brand a little bit. But they are tapping into the anniversary of their demi bra, which was really popular. That was the bra with the cups that kind of pushed the boobies up. And so they're trying to invite back this whole narrative about the icon, the original, reminding girls like, hey, we've been in this game. We're still in this game. We're still in the malls all over the country. We will continue to be your bra and underwear people. Um, and so they've enlisted a lot of the iconic supermodels that we know and love, and they've made sure that they've kind of made it a bit diverse when you're going to look for this new campaign. So Paloma, who's in it, very curvy. Adriana Lima, who's gotten a bit curvier over the years. But we've gotten, they've enlisted models of different ages. So you've got your young girls, and then you've got your Halle Bieber's, but then you also have your iconics like Giselle, who's back out in these streets since the Tom debacle. You got Naomi, who has never missed a beat. Never. Always mother. Never missed a beat. On the campaign as well. It's been great to see this. I'm hoping Victoria's Secret continues to go into the lane that they've been in for a while. I know that they're taking some of the models on an actual tour. And one of the bigger things that they're hoping really, really works for them is they're trying to relaunch the fashion show. So they're calling it the tour, and they're reimagining the fashion show that they used to do that like iconically was on television for years. Once a year they would have this huge fashion show with the angels and who had the biggest wings, but they're changing it up a bit, trying to make it a little bit more modern, a little bit more fresh. And they also want to bring in global creatives that are working in this space and show us some of their work. So that's been really, really incredible to see them sitting down having conversations with different creators all over the globe who are, not just diverse ethnically and globally, but also in like what work they work in creative fields. And I'm excited to see it. I love this approach Victoria's Secret is taking. I think that they're listening now to their customer base, and even this current range goes up pretty high in terms of the sizing. So I'm excited to see how they continue to evolve and how they continue to include other brands. I hope they don't fall back into the trap of just going back to the same old, same old. They have to evolve. Women's bodies are changing. Women change over time. Who you are when you're 20, when you're buying underwear versus 30 and 40 is just different, or 50 and 60. Every woman deserves to look beautiful. I think every woman deserves to celebrate their body. And I think Victoria's Secret is getting that now. And so, let's see what happens. But they're reminding us that, we're the OGs. We've been doing this for a long time. And the fact that they elicit a lot of OGs who've been doing it for a long time is pretty cool as well. Now, look, y'all, I'm reporting on this story because y'all know I love me a good underdog story, even in any field. But in music, interestingly enough, so Love and Hip Hop star Carly Red is currently celebrating another music hit. As you know, Carly, over the years and all the years that she's been on Love and Hip Hop, I want to say Carly's been on since season 1, but it might have been season 2. But she's been on it ever since. Carly is in her late 40s, I believe the beginning of her 50s. But she's like an OG Hollywood like bit actor girl. Like she was always somebody who was in like music videos and things like that back in the day. She was always like a background actor, more so in like maybe sitcoms and stuff like that. She's always been around on some point, and she's made it her mission specifically on Love and Hip Hop to make sure that she did not miss a check every year. That girl came with a storyline or a new relationship or a new man, but Carly has stayed booked and busy on that show. And she's managed to eke out a couple of businesses in the process. I know she co-owns a restaurant with Neo and his ex-wife. I believe they're opening up a second location. She has, I believe, 2 stores in Atlanta, and she also, I believe, has a nail salon. So Carly low-key has businesses in the background that have been successful from the brand, but she also has never given up her love for music. Now, whether that love is completely attached to full talent, I'm still on the fence about that, but I do appreciate that she's never really given up on what she wants to do. As we know, Cardi, Carly. See, I'm getting my love and hip hop people mixed up, and only one of them is a chart topper or was consistently, and that's Cardi B. But Carly Red, however, she is Trinidadian, and she's always like loved showing her Caribbean side on the show. She even I think took them on a trip, but recently she's been diving into music more, and she had a hit single a while back that actually did well. It was a reggae dance hall single. She actually recorded it with her Love and Hip Hop co-star Spice, who is a very well-known, respected dance hall artist and successful award-winning artist from Jamaica, and Capella Gray. And they actually had like an iTunes hit called "Work" that charted on iTunes, I think at number 3, and then it went to number 1 on the reggae dance hall chart. And so that was really Carly's first success a while back. And then she recently just released another single called Bumper Heavy. And it actually features another dance hall icon. And I would say icon more so for him, which is Beanie Man. I think we all know who Beanie Man is. And as well as an amazing singer named Destra, who's also well known in the Caribbean. And the song is already charting at number 1 on iTunes, and I believe it's moving up closer and closer to number 1 on the reggae dancehall charts. It might already be there. I think the last time I checked, it was underneath the top 10. So I'm really, really happy for Carly. I know that she has always wanted to succeed in the music lane. We've always questioned whether she could really do that. Louis pretty, what is it? She had a song for a while called Louis Prada Gucci, Pop the Tags. So she's always been in struggle mode. And I have to say, I'm happy for however she gets it. Because to be honest with you, in seeing the video for this, as well as seeing the other song, I feel like Carly's only like 10% of the success of the song past her pushing it. Because in the video, even in this current song, it's really Beanie Man and Destra carrying the song. And then Carly's like in the video. And so, I feel like the first single is a little bit more her involved, but it also feels like that it's giving I'm the DJ Khaled of dance hall energy. Like I know how to put people together with myself included to make a hit song, but I'm not necessarily making the hit songs. And I'm not hating on it. I think if she can find a way to connect her voice somewhat to these other artists, they make really good music and people are messing with the music because it is moving up in the charts and it's not a false thing. People are messing with the songs. I say go for it. However you can get it in, get it in. Carly, it's never too late to realize your dreams. If anything, I'm glad that she continued to pursue it despite what people were telling her she should or shouldn't do, because you never know. And she's continuing to get her money, so you can't blame her for that. But much continued success, Carly. We'll be watching, and it looks like we'll be watching these songs kind of move the charts and do their thing. And I'm super happy for her. So congratulations to Carly Red. Okay, y'all. So this is just a item that I saw this week that I thought was pretty interesting, and I want to talk about it a little bit because I do think that people aren't really familiar for of what's been going on, and I think they think that there's controversy where there really isn't controversy, and that is on actress and current dean of the Chadwick Boseman College of Fine Arts at Howard University, and well-esteemed actress Felicia Rashad is going to be leaving at the end of the 2023-2024 academic year. Um, as a lot of people already know, Felicia Rashad, like, she didn't really retire from acting because she was still working, but she did take like a little bit of a break to go become the dean of the Fine Arts College because they were kind of revitalizing the prominence of the school. And so she left to go do that because she's a Howard alumnus. They had, asked her to come in and help that school out. It was around the time that Chadwick Boseman had passed away, and they actually renamed the college after him because he is also a Howard alumnus who was, in fact, someone who worked with and had a very good relationship with Felicia. She also had a pivotal hand in him being a success at the school. She constantly gave back to Howard even after she graduated, and back to the fine arts school and to students who were in the acting program. She was one of the people that helped to sponsor a trip that took Chadwick, I'm sorry, to Oxford to study acting during the summer a program, and she actually reached out to famous friends that she had in the industry to help sponsor students that were going. Ironically and interestingly enough, and just how things work in a kismet fashion, the person she reached out to sponsor Chadwick ended up being Denzel Washington. He didn't know Chadwick. He knew Felicia. Chadwick did not know him. He was a student at the time. And he didn't know that he was his benefactor until, years later. So, just an amazing string of events. Look how all of that turned out. But she was asked to come on to sort of revitalize the school. The College of Fine Arts was always like a popular program. They have well recognized people that have come from there. But and she also studied there when she went to college there along with her sister Debbie Allen. The school had actually merged, so it already existed. It was already a fine arts college, but it merged with the larger arts and sciences school back in like 1998, because it wasn't like a separate school into itself. And I don't think people understand sometimes at universities, when you have like a separate college for something, you have to bring in a certain amount of money at your school. So if you have a medical school at like Harvard, or if you have a business school, your business school has to bring in a certain amount of money for it to have its own building, for it to have its own programs going on in there, and to become like a prominent name. If it doesn't, either they'll just get rid of that degree program, or they'll just merge it with the larger university, and it'll just be like an overarching couple of classes or a couple of majors you could take with it, but it won't have a separate department. When you have a separate department with a separate dean, they have to bring in money to maintain that autonomy from just like being mashed up with a whole bunch of programs. And that's what they were trying to do with the College of Fine Arts, which is why they asked Miss Rashad to come in. Um, and then the months after she came in, they renamed the college after Chadwick Boseman, who was obviously a graduate of the school. So it really isn't funny business. There was a little controversy that happened when she was there early on about her statements around the Bill Cosby situation, but that didn't really last long enough, and it wasn't a factor in them asking her to. It wasn't a factor in her leaving. She's just leaving because her job is done. As dean of the university, she created a bunch of initiatives. She raised a bunch of money, which is what is the job when you go in. And it was never her choice to stay longer. She wasn't trying to retire at Howard. She was there to reestablish the school's prominence, raise money. She had impact and influence. They started a scholarship program there. I think Netflix gave like 5.4 million to like this Chadwick Boseman Memorial Scholarship Program. They got money from Microsoft and other companies as well for like resources and things like that they didn't have before at the school, because again, they're trying to establish themselves as a sole space within the university space. And so you have to raise that kind of money. So she was able to do what you do when you bring famous people into, or famous or prominent people to come in to be a chair in a department, to come in to be a dean of a department. They're supposed to bring their resources, their time. They raise money for the school, and they bring the school back to its prominence, or they elevate it. And this isn't her first time, being at Howard. She actually started off as a chair of the department, which is basically when people who are rich come in and say, hey, the school says, hey, we would love to have, I don't know, Cornell West come and teach for a year. We want to have Beyonce come be a professor. And they're like, okay, but Beyonce is not going to take $54,000 a year. We need to find a way to pay her what she might lose if she was to be like on the open market. And they go, okay, well, we have to get donations. And so donors will come in and go, we'll sponsor that chair. They'll basically raise money to pay that person for their time there, because they're not going to take like the regular salary or income that would be kind of low. Because if they're leaving a job that pays more, they're losing money by coming there. So normally they'll say, okay, we'll sponsor them. And they were able to do that for her. Or the school can't necessarily can't afford them. So they'll say like, okay, we'll do that. So she was a Toni Morrison endowed chair at Howard earlier this year. And this is not the first time that she's done that. She was also sponsored by Denzel Washington at Fordham University to be a chair there as well in their theater program previous. So Felicia's not new to the university system. But this was, I think, her first time being a dean. And, sis came to do what she came to do. She's still been acting. She hasn't given that up. It is her first passion and love. And, she's done her job. And, they always tell you when you do stuff excellently, don't just stay, exit on a good note. And I think she's leaving them with a great legacy. Congratulations to them. And I'm glad that she was able to bring the program back to its prominence. Okay, so our last item for the night, y'all. I just saw this, so I'm just really impressed by this. So recently, Men's Health, this is the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and Men's Health did an amazing issue of their Hip Hop is 50 issue. And basically, they had like 6 or 7 prominent rappers on the cover. So covering it is Busta Rhymes, Method Man with his fine looking self. Just we got to take a moment to pause for how fine Method Man is at 50 years old. Just reversing backwards. Thank you, Lord. 50 Cent was on the cover, Common, Ludacris, and Wiz Khalifa. So they're covering like a bunch of different, things about health in general. But what I loved about this particular issue is they did a really dope evolution series within the article. While they are talking about the health regimens of all the men that are on the cover and all the hip hop artists and giving all the love to them, they really did a great service by tracing Black men's health through the genre. And so they're like kind of focusing from like 1973 till today. And they basically look at like through hip hop how like Black men's health has evolved. And it's not just like about, physical wellness alone. So they kind of look at like how the music evolved around what was going on in the community and how it traced like from gun violence to, drug usage, public health crises that could have affected Black men who were living in those communities and things like that. They talk about the HIV/AIDS epidemic and how it touched Black men like Magic Johnson and Eazy-E and pneumonia. They trace American illnesses and stuff that were going on that also would have affected these men at this time who were also listening to this music. And they look at the illnesses that were affecting the Black community or Black men in certain age groups between like 25 and 44. They talk about physical wellness, Black men dying at younger ages of certain illnesses. They even cover like when Diddy ran the city back in the day and he did the marathon. They touch on like prominent athletes and things like that and how health initiatives have worked in the Black community. But because it's men's health, they focus on Black men. So it's just an incredible issue. They also talk about how everybody is looking fine and getting, in shape and looking better older for some of these men than when they were younger. But what's been incredible is the type of dynamic that they touched and the rappers that they talked about, because it's not just guys who were, people who are like Common who were always into their physical health. And then you have people who have rejuvenated their health like Busta and Method Man. But I love just how they traced over the health epidemics in the community and matched it up with what was going on in music at the time and what was going on in music that reflected what was happening in Black men's health. So if you get a chance to read the issue, it's absolutely worth it. It seems really, really incredible. And they did a really good job. So, of course, the men are looking fine. So you get a chance just for that eye candy of Method Man alone and whoever else you might like in the issue, it's worth a look.